I've been prompted to make today's video by two events. One, I was just talking to the newest member of our Dungeons and Dragons club who has bought himself the red box starter kit. And we've got players from 16, 17-year-old right up to me in my 70s. And he is perhaps a bit younger than me, maybe. Never played before, completely new. My idea is to ask you, just tell me if you fancy, I'd love to hear, and I'm sure everyone else would, how you came to Dungeons and Dragons. Now, it doesn't have to be like me back in the 70s. It could be yesterday. Like for our new member, it could be 2 weeks ago. It's still a valid introductory point. Also, a contemporary of mine, perhaps a little bit older than me, who I've always admired and whose views, especially as relating to the earliest days of Dungeons and Dragons, completely coincided with mine. I've often said to my wife, yeah, if I'd been there in that room, I would have said that. I would have walked out. I would have got fed up being shareholder between those two brothers own that number of shares and those two own that number of shares, and I'm the only person in the middle not owning any. I'm constantly like a ping pong ball. I would have got fed up. So Tim Cask, who died late last year having suffered an illness, and who, as well, I've come to YouTube because of Parkinson's disease, and he started his podcasts because of the treatment he was having. If you don't watch his videos, obviously the beauty of this is they are there. You can either his own podcasts, the interviews he's done with other people, things he did when he appeared, say at Gary Con. Honestly, if you don't know him, you should, and if you do know him, I'm sure, like me, I didn't want to say anything too close to the time, like it was cashing in on the poor fella. I just want to, offer my respects, and in the same way that we've got a new member who's starting the Dungeons and Dragons journey, thankfully Tim was able to record enough of his memories on YouTube that we've got them as an archive. Whether we agree with everything we say, whether you agree with everything I say, whether I agree with everything you say, as a community, we can contribute in some way. That's what this is. So to sort of spark that, kick it off, so to speak, I'm going to tell you my journey. Oh, no, please don't. Oh, well, I'm going to. So because it's my camera. So, yeah. Now, like many people might, now I have to sort of preface this because I'm, as I say, a bit younger than the folk who invented Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm older than a lot of folk who are playing it now. So I'm talking about my generation, really, and specifically my generation in the UK, England, and especially my generation who weren't in London. We weren't getting Games Workshops opening in Hammersmith Road. That was London. It wasn't where I lived. That was happening. We played toy soldiers. First Airfix soldiers I ever bought were the Robin Hood's men, and I very quickly then deeded the Sheriff of Nottingham's men. Sheriff of Nottingham's actually the real original box. Robin Hood's not. That's not the right box. It's a new box. It's one I've had to replace. It's annoying, isn't it, when you lose things or they get thrown away. So we played Airfix soldiers. My friends and I loved board games, specifically tactical board games. We played chess. We played Risk, Diplomacy. We also played things like Colditz, but it was mainly Risk and Diplomacy. They were the two games after school. You'd go around people's houses, you'd play. That was the big do. Some of us who were more interested in fantasy, because I read Tolkien not everyone who was around that table had read Tolkien. There were people in my sort of sixth form groups who hated it. I know. Wasn't universally popular in the mid-70s. A lot of people didn't get fantasy. Fantasy wasn't around. There wasn't fantasy on the telly. Fantasy in England, if you saw it on the television, was King Arthur, maybe. Arthur of the Britons, with Oliver Tobias. But that was Dark Age. That was trying to take the mythology of King Arthur and make it more historically accurate by setting it in the Dark Ages, by making Brian Blessed the King of Cornwall. But so fantasy wasn't really proper fantasy. Didn't find it, really. So we weren't immersed in it, is what I'm saying. Then I started playing Avalon Hill games, and my two favourites, and still are, you can actually still get them on places like eBay, the Mystic Wood, which is set around the Arthurian legend, and then the Sorcerer's Cave. The Sorcerer's Cave, if you don't know it, a lot of upside down postcards, you turn one over, there's a chamber or a corridor, you go in. If there's a chamber, you have to take a little card, you have to deal with what's in the little card. Now, that was good, fine, love that, still love it. It's our family's regular Christmas afternoon, Boxing Day family game. Never tires. So, played Sorcerer's Cave. Now, like a lot of folk interested in wargaming, I then went to a formal wargames club. That was in 1972. But formal wargames club, they didn't do fantasy. Nobody was thinking about fantasy. It wasn't happening. I never imagined when I read The Hobbit, for example, that I could ever use that in a wargame. In 73, I went to the Wargames Club, and a group of much older boys than me were playing a game with elves and goblins and hobbits. I've got some of the characters here, so I'll flip that over onto a photo for you, let you see that for a bit. Ostensibly, those games were for using something like Wargames Research Group rules, because we didn't have chainmail over here. I never saw chainmail really advertised or available. None of my friends had it. It was ostensibly to fight as a war game Tolkien, so he could do Helm's Deep, the Battle of the Five Armies, using Wargames Research Group rules. Your elves are going to shoot like Welsh bowmen at Cressy because they were the best. So that's what we did. Now, everyone was telling us that the miniature figurines figures, which were published by Minifigs in Southampton under license to the Tolkien estate, were to wargame the big games. But my question was then, and is now, why do this then? That's a Barrow-wight. Where do the Barrow-wights appear in a big battle? You could get a Balrog. You could get a Smaug. When do they appear in big battles? They don't. So they're making figures for a system that hasn't got anything in it. Now, I very quickly, and a lot of my friends very quickly, started to use the figures in Sorcerer's Cave. So when the dragon appeared in Sorcerer's Cave, we used the minifigs Smaug. And instead of using a little blue card that said dwarf, we kept the little blue card that said dwarf because it's worth a number of points towards the end of the game. But we actually put a minifigs dwarf on. Man, there you go, I've got one of them. Woman, yep, I've got one of them. Flaming did some nice medieval women. So we whacked one of them on. So we sort of had a mixture then of rooms and dungeons, we didn't know what was going to come out when we turned the card over. And we didn't know what we were going to have to deal with, good or bad, because there's treasure and there's monsters. And as you go deeper into the dungeon, on level 1, if you go in the chamber, you turn over 1 card. You go down to level 2, it's 2 cards. And there are rock falls and snake pits and all sorts of things can happen to you. So there was an element in our heads of role-playing with figures, Sorcerer's Cave, but it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. We start to see fantasy figures other than miniature figurines. The first time we start hearing about Dungeons and Dragons in magazine adverts is 77. To get the game, you had to fill in a coupon and send it off with a little check or a postal order, and you had to wait 2 weeks for it to come back. And we didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. So I wasn't going to order it. I'm not ordering something blind when I'm a poor student. So me and my pals used to play Sorcerer's Cave. And we had a box set. And we kept running out of cards. Because you don't get an infinite number of cards. So we kept running out of cards. So I said, well, let's have a box each. And then when we're at home, we can play it. And when we get back to uni, we can all play it. We can have a massive, we go up and down, we go all over. We go through, descend into Hades. So we're right, okay, we'll do that. So as far as I can remember, I got my coupon, I ticked it proper, I sent the right money off. I wouldn't have sent the wrong money. Wait, get a little card through the post box, postman. We've got your parcel at the post office. So I tootled down to the post office in Rochdale. And then I got this parcel and I was expecting a box. That big. Well, it was a thin envelope. I said, well, that's not what I want. I took it home and I opened it and it was the Tomb of Horrors, Dungeons and Dragons. No idea what that meant. It wasn't what I ordered. Certainly not Sorcerer's Cave, which is what I wanted. And I thought, well, I'll have a look, see what I think. And I looked, and I put it down, and I put it back in the envelope, and I thought about sending it back. And then I sort of got intrigued, really. And in becoming intrigued, I thought about how I'd play it and who I'd play it with, because nobody I knew played it. When I went back to college, I asked round. None of the gamers had heard of it, really. 1 or 2 had heard of it and thought, nah, I don't want that. A load of nonsense. It's not based on anything. It's made up. We don't like made up. It has to have value, and it didn't. Now, I'd come to think it might be fun. So I forced 3 or 4 other people to play. And we took the characters straight out the back of the Tomb of Horrors. If you know the Tomb of Horrors, and you do, I know that, because you're well versed, it's a killer. It's a dungeon of death. Absolute module of death. A terrible thing. Because it was a special. It was done as a special for a convention for people who knew what the heck they were doing. It weren't doing for me. And then, when I got the book, someone nipped me. I went back and I got the 3 giant modules, the G1, G2, G3. And then I got, after I'd done Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, I think it's the second one. Tell me, comment. Because I'm hoping you're going to tell me other stuff as well, so tell me. And then I did the Silver Princess. And I did have quite a few modules. By 82, I was teaching, and at the school I was at, there wasn't any. There weren't any things for the kids to do with an evening. There weren't any clubs. There were no church groups. There was no scouts. There's no youth club. Nothing. So I started running a games club. Any game you like, chess, drafts, not bothered, board games. And then children were making Airfix kits. And then we started having war games. And then I introduced role-playing games. And slowly, over time, we had something every night. School sort of finished at 3:30, 4 o'clock. I'd let them have nibbles and whatever's. And then we'd stop at school till about 9. But the other thing in 82 was I stopped using the formal modules. Tell us what your journey was like, because I know there are similarities and differences in every journey, aren't there? And I personally am genuinely interested, and I think documenting it in a way that we can save it and keep it and cherish it is important. Your memories are important, and they're important for the greater community. We'd like to hear them. We hope you like hearing ours. And when, as people make comments, read them. Don't just listen to this. Read what other people are saying and comment about what they're commenting on. Share it. Tell your granny. You never know. She might fancy going down a dungeon. Hey, ta-ra, Chuck.